Welcome to Manifest This, Believer versus Skeptic. Hi, Skeptic.
Hi, Believer. How are you today, Jennifer?
Good. I'm good. I'm so excited we're doing this. This has been such an organic process that we landed here on this podcast. Speaking of which, don't you think it's interesting? And we can tell the audience, don't you think it's interesting that you had always wanted to do a podcast? It was on your bucket list.
And you
And
had always wanted to do a podcast as well.
well, I've done a podcast, as you know, but it kind of all came together in September when you pitched me on this whole idea. And I had wanted to revive my podcast, but it was not at all at the forefront of what I was going to do this year. And you pitched me on the whole idea of, listen, you're a believer. I'm not there yet. Why don't we make a podcast out of this? And, I was sold on the spot. So here we are.
Well, yeah, I think it started out with my being extraordinarily practical and perhaps a little frustrating to you, saying, this is great, but I need a user's manual because I'm an operations girl, right? That's what I did
Exactly.
in my previous life. And so there's got to be an operations manual that's more than the kind of fluffy stuff of, just sit around and chant Om and say a few phrases and away you go. So I think it's interesting that we get to challenge each other, but
No, I totally
not
agree.
not unexpected given how we met and how we supported each other through our professional careers.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell your side of that story?
So Jen and I met, I think we were in our 20s, mid 20s.
Yeah.
And we were both working for female entrepreneurs in Canada. And those female entrepreneurs got to know one another and they thought that you and I should meet. And so I think our friendship and relationship has stood the test of time a little bit longer than theirs did, funnily enough. But, we always relied on each other, made sure we had lunches every so often, and supported each other as women do and ought to in the professional world. And I think I'd say that you were seminal in some of the decisions that I made in terms of helping me work my way through it. Yeah, so that's sort of my experience. And now we're in very different parts of our lives
We
as we
are.
fast forward 30 years.
So again, speaking of manifestation, you now live in Malaysia.
I do. I do.
And I'm going to argue that you manifested that whole thing.
I know you will. And so I'm going to challenge that a little bit as we get through our discussions. And see where that lands us because, I'm all about the planning and the sorting and the thinking about it. And I'm not sure it's a manifestation thing, but I'm willing to keep an open mind.
Well, we're certainly at different stages of our life now in our mid 50s than we were in our mid 20s, but I think we're both exactly where we wanted to be and land. And whether you want to admit it or not, the good and the bad
Yes.
that we are experiencing in our life, we manifested. We can't blame anybody else. There are no victims in this game. Everything you're experiencing in every part of your life, your financial life, your love life, your emotional life, your relationship life, every part of your life you asked for. And so you can sit in the corner and cry, or you can realize that you have an awful lot of power. And the
Mm-hmm.
power is it's proof. Your power is proof right now. You're sitting in your life today because of your thoughts, nobody else's. And so if you have the power to make your life not so great, you certainly have the power to turn it around. And I think that is the beginning of what we're talking about in this entire podcast series is you're in control, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But the power in that is you're in control. And
Well,
so,
I think I would put that down to I'm a glass half full kind of girl. So while I appreciate being in control, I also tend to look at, while I am also manage risk quite a bit, I also tend to look at the brighter side of things and, try to figure out what my contribution to the situation is and how I can make things a little bit better.
fair enough. But unfortunately, in this life, the conscious mind is not running the game. So you might consciously think that you're a glass half full girl, and I know you are, but it's the subconscious mind that's running the game. So it's the stuff that is so en route that you don't even know is there. That's what's running the game. Okay.
Well, and those are the pieces we got to talk about because I want concrete evidence. I want the scientific backing.
Exactly. So where do you want to begin?
Good question. So, why don't you start by, really explaining law of attraction in simple terms for everybody to understand? Do I just, think about getting rich and money shows up, or what does it actually mean? Maybe it's work, maybe it's not work. Do I have to put into it with my head?
So the simplest way that I can explain this is that thoughts become things. And it's as simple as that. What you think about, again, either consciously or subconsciously, eventually materialize into matter. And the best way that I can describe this, that I think everybody will be able to relate to, is the design world. Now, I come from the design world, 20 years working and owning a graphic design and marketing business. And one of the most powerful things that I noticed about designers, architects, interior designers, you name it, creative people, even non-designers, business people, is what they want to establish starts in the mind first. So let's look at a graphic designer. A graphic designer who's designing a logo, maybe, or let's just say the cover of a book. They see the cover of the book or the logo in their head first. They might see the form, the font, the color in their head, and then it comes through their body into their hands, and they either sketch it out or computer
Render
computerize
it.
it out. Okay.
Mm.
Same thing with a business owner. Let's look at any successful or non-successful business owner. They see in their head what they think is possible. They can see it. And even if they can't necessarily see it, they can put the parts together in their head, right? It starts in the mind first. And then they start to be pulled. And if the vision is strong enough in their head, they'll start to meet the right people. They'll start to shake the right hands. They'll start to bump into relationships and partnerships in their daily life that are going to start to put the pieces together to bring that together. So whether you're actually in the career of being a designer, making a blueprint, then building the house, or showing your clients the floor plan of a new room and then bringing that to life. Same thing. It starts in the mind first and then it becomes reality. And we're doing the same thing every day with our marriages, with our bank accounts, with our clothes closets, with our family relationships. It all starts in the head first. So that's a wonderful thing.
You mentioned the subconscious. Like, how are you controlling your subconscious mind? I understand what you're saying about your conscious mind and how you could build that. But you mentioned the subconscious mind. Where does that fit in?
So you just said control your subconscious mind. That's exactly what you have to do. But 95% of the time, we're not controlling our subconscious mind. It's just running in the background. Okay. For example, let's talk about money because it's a big one.
Okay.
Think about you and everyone else that's listening. Think about how you were raised around the topic of money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Think about what was going on in the family situation when the topic of money came up, or maybe didn't even come up. And I'll give you an example. In my family, we didn't talk about money. We didn't talk about whether we had it or whether we didn't have it. We didn't talk about it. I knew subconsciously there was a limit to there was a limit to the money in our family household, but we didn't talk about it. So what do I do in my life now? I don't talk about it. I don't talk about how beautiful it is and how wonderful it is and how there's lots of it to go around, and where that came from, there's more to come. There's lots more where that came from. I don't talk about it. So I have to consciously change the way I think, therefore talk about the subject of money.
So, can you give a personal story about how it worked in your life?
I totally can. And it's very recent. So, I'm a believer in getting everything in my life that I want, and I know I can get it. I've come a long way. April the 6th, last year, 2024. I wrote in my dream book, which we can talk about later, that I wanted to be debt free. This is a money topic. I wanted to be debt free by December 31st, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was a big thing to write in that book. And we don't need to talk about numbers, but there we were in the tens of thousands of debt. And so I put it in the book and I shut it and I forgot about it. And that's the key right there. But again, we can dive into this through this series. December the 1st, I opened up that book again, as I do regularly, and I looked at that goal. You can call it a goal or a dream or whatever. And I went, wow, I got a long way to go still. But anything's possible. And I shut the book again. On December the 18th, my mom died,
Yeah.
which nobody wants, nobody asked for. And eventually, with that came some inheritance. And between the 18th of December and the 1st of December, I paid off that debt. So that is not what anyone is here to listen to. They're not expecting that answer, but I'm telling you, when you put something into a real desire and you leave it up to the universe or to God or whatever whatever word you want to use, the minute you put it in there, all of these orchestrations start happening behind the scenes that you are so unaware of. And they're working towards bringing you what you've asked for. So you got to be careful what you ask for.
In some respects, though, it kind of sounds like you're throwing a nickel in the wishing well and hoping something happens.
Well, you are. I'm not.
What's the distinction?
Belief.
Okay, tell me more.
I know. I believe. It's happened to me so many times in my life that I don't have to question it anymore. My job is not the how. My job is the what. What do you want? And so part of what I've started to do with the rest of my life is encourage people to figure out what their what is. What do you
Mm-hmm.
want? What do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to have? Because you can be, do, and have anything you want. But there's a little bit of belief involved.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second because you and I started playing with this last year. And I sat down and wrote a bunch of things down, including doing some meditations, which I've always done some of, and really focusing on last year for me was focusing on my health, being in the best possible health I could be. I, was doing all the workouts. I had a personal trainer. I was at 58, the strongest I've been in my entire life. And I mean, I played sports as a young person as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was doing what I'm extraordinarily passionate about, which is playing pickleball. And I tripped and fell and had a very bad break to my arm. And
Mm-hmm.
I had surgery and I'm still trying to recover from it. How does that track with all the good intentions? I didn't have the intention of getting a broken arm, but all the good intentions of being in really good health.
Well, a couple things going on here. First of all, the body and subconscious mind is a very powerful thing, right? So what you'll notice, what a lot of people notice is the minute they decide to get healthy, they get taken out of it. They get sabotaged by their own subconscious mind because the
Hmm.
subconscious mind knows that she really doesn't want to do this. So that's one possible. But I think the more plausible answer is this, and the reason I'm going to answer it with another example. One day I was walking around the block like I always do on my daily walk, and I walked by a house that had a big fancy car in the driveway, and the car did not match the house.
Mm-hmm.
So in my head, I started to judge and criticize and say nasty things about the people that owned the house and had this fancy car. Do you know what happened next?
Hmm.
I tripped so badly out of nowhere on nothing that I opened up my leg and gashed my knee.
Oof.
Now, I was aware enough to realize that those unkind thoughts that I
Mm-hmm.
had about those people came right back to me because like attracts like. Unkind things create unkind outcomes. And that's where the subconscious mind is, where the work is. It's the
Right.
unkind thoughts, it's the worry, it's the criticism, it's the judgment. It will come back to you.
Well, we've had this discussion a little bit before because, like you said, I'm a half glass full. And once all was said and done, and as painful and complicated and crappy as this broken arm has been, I told you it's taught me something completely unrelated, as it were, to my physical health. And as you said, I live in Malaysia on my own. I have friends, of course, but it was quite interesting when I gave over to help, when I made decisions to not be the tough one and not do the whole thing by myself, but allow people, and I think Simon Sinek has got this great story of friendship, and what it really means is when your friend will sit with you in the mud.
Yeah.
And to allow it's an honor to the friend to be permitted to be part of your life and help you when you need to. And I have to say that, as tough as the arm break has been, that to me has been the incredible lesson, which I guess one could argue has nothing to do with physical health, but probably has a lot to do with emotional well being and one's place in the world. So I could sort of see if I look at it from that perspective, and obviously the learning of all of
Well,
that.
for sure. And I mean, you can take two people, give them the same accident, one will continue to struggle and the other one will rebound, right? It's all about energy. This is an energy game. You can have, my partner just had his knee replaced. Okay. You can have two people of the same age, of the same athletic physiology. One will have a knee replacement and bound back, and the other person will have a knee replacement and still be, rubbing that poor knee 6 months later. It's
Hmm.
all about mindset. And, the sports world knows it. They know that crossing that finish line it's a mindset game and a visualization game. And if you see yourself getting healthy, and if you see yourself being better, and if you see yourself as a winner and crossing the finish line and healing and healthy and well, you're going to be a different person than the person that is, you know, victim stance, always me. It's not healing. I can't do anything about this. Poor me, poor me. Same person.
Yeah.
We see it all the time.
Yeah. So,
It's mindset.
okay. So, can you unknowingly manifest negative outcomes?
100%. And so can the collective. In other words, a group of people can also manifest for good and for bad.
Okay, talk more about that.
Look at any government and country situation, whether you support the leader or not. The leader is there because they were supported by the majority of the voters, right? So you can point your finger at the leader and say, I don't approve of you. I don't like you. I don't like what you stand for. But there's a whole bunch of people that are supporting that platform,
Hmm.
and that the leader actually thinks they're doing good for their people. That's a perfect example of collective consciousness. The collective, the consciousness of the collective, right? It's not the first, we're going through that right now in our world. It's not the first time that's happened. So, yes, you can, and it's all in the eye of the beholder. One person thinks it's great, the other person thinks it's not so great. So, it's all about consciousness and energy flowing. If the energy's great, you get great matter. If the energy's not great, you don't get great matter.
So, talk to me a little bit about confirmation bias, because people notice things that confirm their beliefs but ignore it. When times it doesn't work. So, I want to buy a pink car, and all I'm seeing are pink cars everywhere all of a sudden. Is there an element of that?
Isn't that the whole point, though? That's the whole point. So, when I was a young woman working at the same stage as you, my boss, the bosses we were working for, my boss bought me a black Jetta, a brand new black Jetta, handed me the keys. I was doing a great job. As part of my compensation package, they bought me a brand new car. What do you think I noticed on the roads the minute I got that black Jetta? Black Jettas were everywhere, right? But if I saw broken down clunker cars everywhere, that's what I would notice. That's the whole point. If you believe good things are possible, you will see more opportunities. If you believe things are unfair, you will not only see, but you will get experiences of things that are unfair. The law of attraction doesn't create magic, it shifts your awareness so that you can act on what's already around you. It's as simple as that.
So, in some respects, it sounds, I mean, you and I worked on strategic plans in companies and goal setting. In some respects, it kind of sounds like just setting goals and working toward them.
It's not though. It's not though. And I'll tell you why. I can't tell you how many times I have written a strategic plan, but in the back of my mind, I was saying, this is never going to work. We are not going to get there. What am I thinking? This is not going to happen. I happen to have a partnership, work for a partnership right now. And every morning, this leader gets up and says, guys, there's so much in this group of leads. There's so much business in this block of leads. It's going to blow your mind. Do you know what would happen if he went to those sales meetings every morning and said, guys, you know what? You're going to have to pull them out. I don't know where they are. You're going to have to, I'm not so sure about this batch of leads, but give it a shot. Do you know that that pep talk from that leader and his belief in what is possible and what is sitting in that business, you watch that business, it's going to fly faster than anything else around it. It's all about not just intention, but continued belief.
Okay, I think one of the things we talked about was the possibility, because I'm the skeptic, of maybe trying an experiment so that I can try it, people who are listening can give it a shot, and you and I can reconvene, and because I want to see the proof in the pudding. And see where I stand in a week's time. So
Okay,
this is part of the user's manual we're talking about, right? Those
right.
little nuggets.
Okay. So I've got a couple of them. They're the beginner, like baby step tests. And I think this would be a really good place to maybe offer this to the audience and let them have a go at it too. And then we'll come back next episode and see what happens. So I'm going to give you a choice of a couple of them.
Okay.
And the first one that I'm going to give you is and this, you've probably heard this around, but it's a good one, the coffee test. I want you to expect receiving a coffee from someone else. Okay. Well, not necessarily, I shouldn't even put that parameter on it. I want you to manifest a cup of coffee. So, what I want you to do is, if you're willing to do this, is close your eyes. You don't have to do it right now. Close your eyes, and I want you to see the cup of coffee, and I want you to believe that this coffee is moving towards you. And I want you to imagine the excitement and probably the disbelief when you get this coffee. You're going to go, that's crazy. And when you get the coffee, I want you to feel the feeling now of what it would be like if somebody actually handed you that coffee and going, holy smokes, I can't believe that just happened. Okay. So one is the coffee test. And another one that's kind of fun is called the red balloon test.
Okay.
Okay. So again, I want you to close your eyes. When you get a quiet moment, close your eyes. I want you to see a red balloon in your mind's eye. They call it your mind's eye, but it's really your imagination. I want you to see a red balloon in your imagination. I want you to see it blown up. I want you to see it shining. If the sun is kind of glinting off of that latex um, blown up side of it, I want you to see it maybe floating, maybe with a string on it, doesn't matter. Just see the balloon in your mind and attach a feeling to it of joy or of happiness or whatever that is. When you see that balloon, how are you going to feel? And then let it go and see what happens. I did that experiment last year. I like to do the little ones again because they're just such a reminder that if you can manifest a red balloon, you can manifest anything: love, health, wealth, all of it. You can do it. You got to believe. I did that last year in the morning. And the next thing I knew, I was driving down the road and I happened to drive by a dealership that had those wavy red balloons, trying to get people to come into the dealership lot. And I looked at it and like, my gosh. But
Yeah.
again, I would have driven right by it if I wasn't looking for red balloons.
So what
So
you're
back,
saying is notice these things.
well, a balloon is I wasn't looking for it and all of a sudden I saw it and I went, "Oh my gosh, there it is." But the coffee cup will be a little bit more obvious.
Okay. I'm willing to
So there's a
play.
couple tests for you. See what happens. Let's talk about it next time.
I'm willing to play. Jennifer, did you want to sort of tie this off for us or add anything more in terms of law of attraction for all of us beginners and skeptics?
Listen, I I have changed my entire life. This has taken me decades. So this is something that if you're not used to it or it's a new concept for you, it does take a little bit of work, but it also takes an opening of your mind to believe that maybe there's more to this whole life than we give it credit for. I would just like to engage everybody to maybe try this little one challenge this week. Try the same experiment that Sharon's going to try and share your results with us. We want to know where you're struggling. Did you see it? Is it happening? You can change your life this way.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe your life is awesome already. Well, guess what? There's even more out there for you. And I just want the whole world to know that.
Well, and I think Jennifer just saying that is sort of summarize the ethos and the purpose behind this particular podcast is sharing experiences and zest and vigor and a love of life. And we're not always going to agree and we're not always going to approach it the same way. But I'm very interested in how you're working through law of attraction and wouldn't mind these little tests to be perhaps somewhat more convinced that there's more possibility in life that I could pull out of.
Excited to do this. Manifest this. Let's go.
Okay, folks, we'll talk to you on our next episode. We'll let you know the results of the test that Jennifer has assigned for me and how it goes. We invite you to play along and join us next time on Manifest This Believer versus Skeptic.